Hello and welcome to Unit 3 Animate, where, believe it or not, you are going to be creating this particular video. Now, what's important to remember about these videos is that when we put them all together, if someone has actually created all the resources necessary to start the videos, so you're working with the tools, you're coming up with the procedures and things along those lines, and you're learning how to use those tools, but remember, these particular resources, and what I mean by resources are any sort of videos you might use, any sort of animation you might use, things along those lines, have already been pre-made for you, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. So here we go. This is the way it's going to work when you're all the way done, we hope, right? Dun, 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 which is kind of cool. All right, so let's watch it one more time. I like the little car rumble. That's kind of neat. Okay, so the next thing I actually did at this point in time is I went Insert, Timeline, Layer. That then inserted a layer. And then what I did was I moved the layer all the way down below Actors, Man, Woman. I moved it to City. And then what I did was, after I moved it, I moved it below. Then I actually moved the City BG.jpg, which is in your library panel, right? Your library under City, then you move that over here, and then you insert the City. Now, I haven't done anything with it yet. You'll also notice that my panel is set to about 45%, so I can see it. Your panel may be different depending upon how you arrange your windows, but after it's all said and done, you should have something that looks similar to this right here with City below all your other items. After your City is successfully input, you want to go ahead and change the X value to 0 and the Y value to 90 in the Properties panel, and that'll rearrange where the city is supposed to go. You'll notice I can actually see part of the cityscape below. I'm going to lock down all these other items, so that allows me to kind of work with different elements. Now you'll note if I want to see how the city disappears, that's how the city disappears, and that's reappeared. So as we were talking about layering of the different animation images and things along those lines, that's a perfect example of how layering works. Okay, so what I did for this next bit is I inserted a motion tween. So I clicked right here, I did insert, and then you'll see a motion tween right here. And all you do is you insert the tween, you move it all the way to where you want it to stop. In my case, I want it to stop at 190, which is right there. And then I move the picture to where I want it to stop. So the way it's going to work is this. And the difference is between 0 and 90, but I want to see a change. So now when I play this on City, you can see how the city's falling, and then different animation elements are actually flying in as the city drops. I'm going to go ahead and undo that so you kind of see what it looks like. I'm going to edit. I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to remove my motion, insert, remove my motion, right? So there's my motion. Now what I do is I click on the first element. I make sure that that is selected. It is selected. I do insert, and I'm going to do motion tween. Then what I do is I drag my playhead, which is that red thing, all the way to the end where I want it to stop, which is going to be that one right there. And then I can just grab on it, and I'm going to move it down. And what it does between the frame that was all the way over here and the frame that was all the way over here, it smooths the movement between the two. So when I run it, it's going to work like this. All right. What I can also do is actually click on this right here, and I can change the size at which it actually does that motion tween. So you'll notice that I'm pushing that down, right? And I'm decreasing it. So now what it'll do is it'll still do that motion tween, but it'll do it faster, because the amount of frames that it takes place is over a smaller distance. And then, of course, if I made that smaller, it would be smaller. Now you'll notice that the image disappears because of the fact that I moved the whole frame. And I can put it back out here, and then my image appears. All right. Sounds good. Let's move on to the next bit. Okay, so as you see right here, what I've done is I've I made the city animation start at frame 10. So I just basically moved it from here to over here, and then I made it stop at frame 40. So I moved it all the way back to frame 40. Now what I can do is I'm going to change the way it appears by playing with the alpha. All right. So that means when good words here. It just means that I'm going to make it where you can't see it in the beginning and make it where you can see it in the end. And then as you transition, it goes from can't see to can see. So I'm going to click on this right here. You'll notice in the color effect panel, here's my color effect panel. When you start out, you should see none. You want to make sure to choose alpha. And then you want to change it to 0%, meaning you'll still be able to see the movement right here, but you can't actually see where the item is, like you can't actually see the item here. And then as you move it all the way down to the end right here, you'll notice that I click on it right here, and then I choose Style Alpha and I move it to 100%. So the idea is, you'll notice at the very beginning, I don't see it, and then as it moves in, the cityscape slowly materializes as I go through. Okay? All right, that's what's going on there. Are there any particular questions about that? Now, you'll notice that this is going to be my animation. Now, eventually, as it moves past the animation, there's nothing right there. So I'm going to eventually insert the actual image of the city right here, so it'll then stay throughout. All right. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on the woman. You'll notice at the very beginning of her when she starts to come in, the alpha has been turned off for her. So you'll have to click up here on the image itself, right? Also make sure that the man is hidden and locked, because the man is larger. The man image is larger on here, so you'll always select that. So you want to make sure that he's hidden and locked, and then you click on woman, right? And then down here you'll see where it says filters. So you want to go ahead and click on this, and you want to do blur, and we're going to do a 20-point X and a 20-point Y. You're going to ask me what those mean. That means it's the amount of, I believe that means that's the amount of pixels that it blurs by. So you'll notice now as I preview this image, as the woman comes in, she is blurred. Okay, and if I compare that to the man image as it comes in, you've got him and then her kind of blurred in the background. Kind of an interesting filter. Once again, what I did is I made sure I was clicked on the woman, and then I came in, clicked on her image. Now you'll notice I didn't turn off the man, so I want to make sure to hide him, lock him in, click on the woman, click on this image, and then I'm down here for my filters, right? And I want to do, once again, I've added my blur filter right here, so I clicked on that, added blur, made sure it was 20 and 20, and now it affects how she looks throughout the thing. And of course, her alpha in the very beginning is 3%, and then at the very end, as we go through, her alpha changes to almost 100% as she goes through. All right, that's interesting. Okay, so we went ahead and made the woman's face blurred out, right? Now the problem is she stays blurry the entire time, including when she actually reaches focus. So what we did is on the blur for the woman on section, looks like I did it on section 75. Yep. And I did it between 75 and 140, which is perfectly fine. My numbers, you were supposed to actually do it between 140 and 160, but that's okay. If you come along in here and you right click right here, and you want to insert keyframe, and we want to choose filter. So what's going to happen is at the point in time when it hit 75, and then I came along all the way here, and then the next one I clicked it at 160, you'll notice she's in focus. I can insert here, and I can insert keyframe, and I want to say filter again. At the point in time when I insert my keyframe filter here, I can click on the image right here, and I'm going to change the filter to, let me click my image, I'm going to change filter to 0 and 0. So that means from whatever she starts going in up to 75, she's blurred. And then on the other side of 75, between 75 and 160, she begins, between 140, my bad, between 140 and 160, she begins to focus in. So once again, what I did was I went to 140. For some reason, it didn't show up before. I can right-click on 140, and I want to insert keyframe filter. So that begins to put another filter on the keyframe between 140 and 160. Then what I do is I go over to 160, right-click here, and I insert keyframe filter. When I insert the keyframe filter here, I can then click on her image, click on her image here, and I make sure it's at 0%. So what's going to happen now as I play this, you'll notice she comes in, and at first she's blurry, and then it'll eventually hit 140, and then 160 she comes into play. Now the guy was not shown during all this, and then you'll see how we're kind of putting things together in layers. So that comes in, and she comes in, and the cars, and then right now there's no cityscape, but we can insert the cityscape at as we go along. Okay, so this next one's kind of a multi-step process. Now what I did is I inserted, I was right here, and I went through and I insert a timeline and a layer. Now that inserted layer is in the cars folder, so I'd have to move it into the cars folder, and I'd call it left car. At the point in time when that occurs, what I want you to do is I want you to go to section or frame 75. When you're in frame 75, you can right click and you can insert keyframe, okay? And then what that's going to do, insert a new keyframe, F6 at 0.75, right there. And that's going to create a keyframe right here. Then what you do is you go to your library, and then you look up car left. So here's my car left. You'll notice you can't see it because I've made some modifications to it. So I'm going to click on my car left so you can kind of see what the deal is. Now if you have to convert it to, because to play with the alpha slider, you have to right click and you have to transform to, or you have to convert it to a symbol, right? So you have to convert to symbol. That allows you to modify the alpha class. So I'm right here. I've changed my alpha to 0%. Now my X is 1,381. My Y is 430.25. My width is 400. And my height is 404.5. Now what's going to happen is it's basically going to slide in to right here. So what I then did, after I did that, is I right-clicked, and then I chose, I wanted to insert a tween, insert a motion tween. And then I moved out to position, I moved out to position 100, right? And then I finished my tween. At the point in time when I'm position 100, I can then click on that. I choose my alpha at 100%. You'll notice my X is now 913.7. And my Y is 474. My width is 399.95, and my height is 404.5. So there isn't much of a difference. But the way this is going to work is it's basically going to drive in from off camera and park right there. And your size might be slightly different, but you notice they're all coming in and parking. And that's all that basically did. And since it exists beyond that, it stays there, unlike, if you recall, my the cityscape, which did not actually stay there. Interesting things about the motion tween. What you can do, if you click on the actual motion tween itself, you can change the size. And this is just me kind of playing around and showing you some different modifications that you can make to the motion tween here, that you can play with it. You can change it to where it comes from up here and then goes down here. You can grab one of these items here. Let's see if I can. I can grab one of these. Ah, it doesn't allow me to do it. But you can actually change. You see how it bowed just a little bit? You can actually change where it, the path itself, so you can edit the path. And you can modify the directions these come from. So I can come in and grab which direction. So this is going to go here and then here. And if I click on, let's say I want to use that one, I want to move it down here. Now I've changed kind of the direction it comes from and what's going on at the point in time. Okay. So I'm going to edit and undo these options right here. But basically I'm going to move it back to the way it was here. And I'm pushing Control Z just to kind of move it back. So now you've got the situation where the car does fly in that particular way, right? So it's a little different. but you can modify those as you go through. All right, so that concludes the first part of our Unit 3 demonstrations.